Hey, good morning, guys. So today I wanted to talk about a new application. So if you watch my last video on how to get started with Flutter, you should be right about this point where, here we have like the default application that Flutter comes with, which is just basically, you click on it and it adds to the counter. But we're going to start with something simple because this is meant to be a series where you can go from installing Flutter all the way to basically making a functional, somewhat of an app. So today we're gonna basically make a contact card. So basically, it'll display your picture, your name, something like this perhaps, where you have a picture of someone, you have the name, you have an email, you have some kind of role, team, and some buttons you can press to basically show information. And it should take a long time to make with the videos, because essentially this is meant to be a learn as you go kind of course, where I don't just want you to do the coding with me. I want to show you where I'm getting the information from, why I'm using a stateless widget versus a stateful widget, and I want you to see all the troubleshooting that you have to go through when you kind of code something from scratch, right? So I don't want to skip anything on this tutorial. It might seem simple to most of you who have done coding, but I know if you're a beginner and you're getting started with Flutter, sometimes when you watch those videos, a lot of times the guys who are doing the coding, they say, hey, we'll just add a stateless widget and we'll use provider and bam, 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 it's all done. They never explain why they're using things, what alternatives they can use. So that's kind of what I'm hoping to aim at, is kind of show you different things and kind of expand your mind and give you context of what we're coding and why we're coding those things. So essentially the main theme about these videos is that I want to show you where I get all my information. I want to show you, because if I show you how to get the information, then you yourself can get new information, right? Instead of, if you have someone teach you how to do a container on Flutter, but they never tell you where they got that information, then it's kind of useless to you. But if they show you how to read the documentation and how to extract that information and apply it to yourself and teach you the language that you need, then it will be a lot more beneficial. So we're going to go on a website that I don't use it often, but it's called Dribble with 3 B's. And we're just going to get some inspiration, because basically the people here, they've already done a lot of work when it comes to planning how the app is going to look. And we're just going to straight up copy their designs, which you shouldn't, of course. You should buy the design and do the whole thing. But for the sake of speed, we're just going to copy the design. Again, you shouldn't if you're working on it, but if you're just practicing, it's not that big of an issue to just copy things, just to learn things. So let's see one that we like. How does this look? We can do this. This is pretty simple, but I don't like it too much. It's not going to cover everything that we need to cover. Actually, you know what? Let's go back to this one, right here. This whole thing, right? We're going to kind of go after that. So we're going to try to copy this design right here into our Flutter. And again, I'm going to try to show you how to do everything from scratch. So the first thing you need to do is just delete the default app. Delete everything. Right? That didn't work. There we go. Now everything's deleted. So when you open up Android Studio, all the folders you need, essentially your code, will be stored here. LIB, which I think stands for library, and main Dart is essentially the first file Flutter will open to see what your app is. So always have a main Dart file. There are ways to change the name here, but for the sake of this tutorial, it doesn't really matter. Just call it main Dart, not a big issue, and you'll see it right here. And basically this is what's happening is when you press play or debug or run, whatever you want to call it. I call it play because it looks like play. It basically goes in the main file and it searches for this function, which is the main function. And then when you go in the main function and this is start, it says run this app, and the app is called my app. And the reason it's red is because we haven't really done anything. So let's go to Google and we can type, just Flutter material app, we're going to call it. There we go. So you should keep this website like bookmarked and always kind of reference back to it, because essentially anything you need to know about Flutter, it's on this website. Most things at least. But like this is like a dictionary between design and code. So if you need to know anything, it'll be here somewhere, for sure. So material app, if you read through it, it basically is a bunch of code that the Google team wrote that contains a lot of tools that are going to help you code things a lot easier. So we're going to use material app so that we can gain access to that code that they already wrote for us, so that we can build apps even faster. And essentially, there's two main concepts on Flutter, which are, we're going to start with stateless widgets. And this might seem like we're kind of jumping here a lot, but this will all kind of make sense at the end. And basically everything on Flutter is either a stateless widget or a stateful widget. I mean, take that with like a grain of salt. There are of course more things, but just for the sake of the UI, like how this is the UI, by the way, how things look, you either have stateless or stateful like this. And basically what a stateless widget is, a widget is basically the building block of Flutter. What that means is everything that you see on the screen is a widget. So the screen itself is a material app widget, right? And then we have an app bar here, and that's also a widget. And this button here is also a widget. The text, also a widget. The container that holds the text, also a widget. So you can think of widgets, it's a lot like Legos, right? When you build when you were a kid and you used to build like a Lego thing, like a Lego building. You can think of widgets as basically one small block in whatever you're building, right? It's just like a tiny little block. Like that would be a widget, right? And when you put a bunch of widgets together, then you end up with like a nice product at the end. But essentially, you cannot have a Flutter app without any widgets. And widgets are building blocks. So the most basic components of a Flutter app. Sort of like, you can think of, if you're more into physics or science, you can think of widgets as the atom of the app. It's the most basic fundamental component of an app. So we're going to start with a stateless widget of material app. So we're going to use material app as a stateless widget. And if you're using Android Studio like I am, it has a few shortcuts to make typing a lot faster. So we're going to type STL, and then you can see it starts popping up, right? And then it says press enter to insert, tab to replace. So we're just going to hit tab, and boom, it creates a bunch of like code for us. So basically we're going to type my app, and then boom, you see that this right here went from red to green, because essentially it said, oh, I found what it was missing, right? So this is saying the class my app, so the name of this class is my app, it's going to extend a stateless widget. So basically I'm saying, hey Flutter, can you create a class called my app, and please make it a stateless widget. Essentially this is going to be a stateless widget, because essentially we could also write stateful widget, and then it would be a stateful widget instead of a stateless widget. And then right here where it says override, basically that's going to be a requirement for any stateless widgets and stateful widgets as well. And basically what this is this is called like a function or a method, whatever you want to call it. It's called build. So essentially when you say, hey, build me an app, right here, when it says, hey, go build my app, then my app goes like, okay, sure. And then this will automatically say, hey, can you please start this build method? and then the build method will say, oh yeah, I got this, and then it'll return an empty container at the moment, right? So it basically works on like, imagine a series of phone calls where you press here, right, and then this will call this, and then the code in here between those brackets is run app, my app, and then my app. Stateless widgets will always call a build method, this, and it'll return a container. The container will come here, and then this will return here and here and here, and then you get your app at the end, right? That's basically all that's going on with the stateless widget. And we will introduce stateful widgets in this tutorial, but at the moment we don't really need to introduce them yet. So we're going to keep coding and add a few. Okay, so basically we have a, where is it? Okay, so we have an empty container, and we're going to hit debug or run or play. I'm just going to call it play because I kind of like the name. Play, and then it's going to, here we can see it here. You should always try to use this because it's going to tell you what's happening, like run, and it's going to be, okay, restarted the application in 1 second, and then that's our application, right? Because it's just an empty container. There's nothing, we're given the build method of this app, nothing to build. So it's basically saying, look, it's done, it's an empty app, right? In a container, actually, we can go here, and I want to show you something. Container, widget, Flutter. And I use Google, but technically, it's the same website as before, right? API flutter.dev. And a container, it's also a widget, right? And it doesn't have to be, right, and you should definitely read this eventually. But essentially, it's asking, the build method wants for you to return, I think, it wants you to return a widget, right? But it doesn't have to be a container. For example, I could show you, let's go to Flutter widgets layout. So here are all the types of layouts you can use, and a layout would be like, no, I hate to say it, but like a container that holds other widgets. So a layout, like a container, holds other widgets, and so on. It's like a little, like those Russian dolls kind of thing. And we can find, let's see, container, where is it? Yeah, so a container. Right, so at the moment we're returning a container, but it doesn't mean that we need to return a container every single time. We could also return a constraint box or a center box. Anything you want you can return as long as it's a widget. But because this is coming directly from like the main function, we're going to return something called a material app. And now at this point it might seem kind of random into like, how did you know to return a material app, right? Well, the reason I know to return a material app is because I want to create a Android looking app, and I read this whole thing. Like, I read this whole thing. And then I kind of like realized that the best thing to do is to return a material app class and then build the other widgets underneath. Now, if we go through the material app, here's, for example, an example. It says, in order to have this widget, which is a material app, work, you must have a home. And you can also, a home is basically like the main widget inside the material app. So basically the first thing that's actually going to get built. So let's add a material app, and we're going to add a home, and then we can say body of app, right? And then, because essentially here I'm calling a class that doesn't exist at the moment, right? Similar to what we did here. And it's saying, look, this does not exist. So we can go to Dart analysis, and it says the method of body of app is defined in my app. Now, we could do that and make it look nice like this. Right, that would work. And basically we're just making the code look nice. But for the sake of our app, we're going to keep everything within one line kind of thing, which you shouldn't do. But for learning, I think it's okay. So let's start with something called save area. Actually, no. Let's start with, let's go back here. Let's see if we can find a column. There we go. Because essentially we want to add a picture, some text, So a picture would be a widget, some text, and then some icons, right? We're going to make it slightly different than this, but essentially just keep that in mind. So a column is a way to display multiple widgets, right? So one widget on top of the other, essentially. And what's interesting here is that you can have a column, but you could also have a stack, a row. So essentially, instead of, if you don't want it vertically, you're going to have it horizontally, kind of thing. But because we're going to have picture, text, icons, then we're going to go with the column. And again, we can kind of read this whole thing, right? We should read this whole thing. And here's some sample code that's kind of nice. It says, column, you must have something called children. And the children are basically the widgets that go inside the column, right? So in this case, they're giving you an example here. So this is the app they made where they have deliver features faster, craft beautiful UIs, and then a picture. So we can see a widget text, and then a Flutter logo, right? So everything is like top to bottom kind of thing. And so we're going to do the same thing. And so now we have that idea. We're gonna say, hey, we're gonna add a column, and the children, which again we saw here, children. Sorry. So the first thing we're gonna have, maybe let's not start with the picture yet. We're just gonna add our names, right? Let's add our names. So we're gonna say text, which actually, if you go here, I just want to show you something. Text widget. So text is also a widget, right? Here, this one. We're going to use the default text. And essentially, if we read the documentation, it says, if you want to add a text, then basically write this, and then this is what you want to display on the text. Hello, name, how are you? And then there are some other features here, right? But we're just going to make it real simple right now. And we're going to say, so the first thing we're going to add is James, I don't know, what's a good name? Goodman. So James Goodman is the text we want to display. And actually, so we can hit press again, play, and we can see I mean, this looks pretty bad, right? It's like red text, yellow lines, and the background is black. So it's not very, very good. So what we should really do, what I should have done at the beginning, is I should have added something called a scaffold. That's something that I missed, and that's my fault. Now a scaffold is very nice because a scaffold contains even more code that you need. That's already built by someone else, like app bar, background colors, and some default settings. So basically, even if you add text and you don't add any styling, the scaffold will kind of like handle it for you. So really, we should add the scaffold here instead of the column. So you know what, this is my bad, and I'm going to delete the column, everything. And I'm going to add scaffold here. There we go. Parenthesis, comma at the end. And then again, you can go online and search for this, or you can press Control Q. So if you press Control plus Q, this will pop up here, right? But you gotta like click here first. Click, and then it says body. So there's a property called body, and again, you should read here, and it'll tell you what it needs, right? So body, and then column, and then children. Okay, so this is good. And now we can go back to the text that we had, and we're gonna call it James Goodman. And then we're gonna press play again. And then look, you see how it's right on the top there? It's behind the time, and it doesn't make any sense, right? If you open an app and it kind of looks like that, then you know the app developer is not very good. Luckily, the Flutter team also came up with another widget called Save Area. And again, Google it, go to Save Area, read what it is, understand where it belongs, and we can add it right here. Right here. So, basically I did Alt enter, yeah. So basically, if you want to do that, Alt plus enter. So click on the widget you want to call, and then do Alt, and then enter. And then we can do wrap with widget, and then we're going to call it save area. And then a save area takes a child, which is our scaffold. We're going to hit play again. And then you see, it gave us some default styling. It gave us some, it made the text so it doesn't touch anything. So the save area, I love the save area, and you should use it often. So now we have, let's see, what do we have? So we have the text, and maybe we just want to add, let's add a picture. We should definitely add a picture. So let's just go on Google and type, you know, you can put a picture of yourself. I'm not going to put a picture of myself. Actually, I do have a picture of myself. Let's just put, let's write who? Tom Hanks. Why not? Images. Headshot. There we go. We're going to make an ad for Tom Hanks. So save the image wherever you want. Don't worry about it. Actually, I'm just going to save it on downloads. Just save it anywhere. And we're like Tom Hanks. Like that. Bam, there you go. Tom Hanks. Now we're going to go here. Right, so now we're going to try to add a picture to our app. So we're going to go here at the very top of our app, which is like, in my case, for some reason I called it recruiting when I did this. But you could have named it anything. You could have named it main app, Flutter help, Flutter app, new, directory, assets, and then it creates a new folder. And then we're going to create another folder called images. And now we have two folders, right? So it's basically assets inside of images kind of thing. And the reason we're doing that is because, you know, we would like to keep our files easy to read kind of thing. So we're going to hit copy on the picture from our files, and then we're going to go back here, and we're going to right click and then paste. And then it's going to say, like it's going to give you some instructions, and then it's going to say what's the new name, and we're going to call it tomhanks.jpg. We're going to hit OK, and it's there. Look at that picture. And then we have to introduce a new section that you're going to be working with a lot, called popspec.yaml. Is it YAML or YAML? I don't know. And essentially what this is like a configuration file or your settings file for your app. Basically, it has a bunch of instructions for the Flutter SDK, which basically will, you know, if you want to add an external library, like someone wrote some code for you and they've posted it on the internet, you can easily add it through this. And then Flutter, when it makes that app at the end, like we did on the first video, remember when we went to like build APK, it'll take settings from here and then make it a good app, efficient app. And that won't be too big because we did it properly. And you can read the comments, right? The comments kind of, I mean, Flutter team honestly did a lot of work to specify everything. For example, it says, to add assets to your application, add an asset section like this, and then you can add images, whatever. And just to show you, we can say like, add images to Flutter. That should be good enough. Let's see if the documentation is there. Yeah, so actually Flutter has a lot of tutorials that you can follow. And again, this is flutter.dev. And it says Flutter uses the whatever to locate the root of your project to identify assets. Now on the assets, you'll be able to add fonts. You'll be able to add anything you want, right? And it says here, if you want to add all the images, just do this, right? So we're going to basically copy this like this, like perfectly, and make sure you keep the spaces, because essentially this file is a little bit special because this file actually cares about spaces and stuff like that. So I like to just copy the code straight from the website, and then you see how I backspace here to the very, very edge where there's no space in between, and then I'm going to paste what I just copied. And then we can see I accidentally copied two, so I'm going to delete just the Flutter thing. And then it has assets directory, and we're going to change it to we wrote assets and then images and then one more. Yeah, there we go. And we're gonna leave it like this because we want all the pictures we might add in the future to basically be added to the project. And then we're gonna hit pop get and then pop upgrade. Now, if there's an issue with adding this, then just close Android Studio and open it again, and it'll kind of work. And then we can go image, asset, and again, this is also a widget which you can look for on the documentation. But I'll obviously save you from constantly going through the documentation. And then we're going to write assets, images, Tom Hanks.jpg. Let's see, Tom Hanks. Now, when you add anything to the pop spec, and later on you will be adding tons of stuff to it, just make sure to stop your app, right? You stop your app and then you run it again. It's gonna save you a lot of trouble. Technically, you don't have to, but most likely you'll just need to do it every single time. So every time you add things, just stop your app and hit play. And again, this is called an image asset. And there we go. So now we have a picture of Tom Hanks and the name James Goodman. Actually, let's change the name to Tom Hanks. Kind of makes more sense. Okay, so it's nice that we have like Tom Hanks and a name, but it doesn't look very good, and it doesn't look at all like what we're trying to accomplish. So we're going to use another widget called a circular avatar Flutter. Circular avatar widget. And then we're going to look for the official API flutter.dev, which has all the information. And basically what this is, it's also a widget that will kind of do this for you. And let's see what it says. Let's see, because I haven't used Flutter in a while. It says typically blah blah blah. Widget child. Okay, so here's the. I like reading this one first, the constructors, because it says, okay, the circle avatar has a key, and you can YouTube what this is. If you're watching this video, don't worry about it and just ignore it. It says widget child. So it says it needs a child. It needs a child, and that child needs to be of type widget, right? So obviously the child of our circle avatar is going to be the image, right? That kind of makes sense to you guys? So actually we can click on image asset again, and we're going to hit Alt, Enter, like we did before, and we're going to hit wrap with widget, and then we're going to hit circle avatar. And then just like that, we can press play again. And then you see it became a little circle kind of thing. It doesn't look very good, I realize that, but we will fix it. So not on the child of image assets, but here at the very top, we're going to add something called radius, and we're going to call it, I don't know, 60 pixels, whatever you want to call it. Let's just make it bigger first, right? So now it looks bigger. And then we can see it has like a blue background kind of thing, and maybe we don't like that. So again, reading the documentation, we can see that it has a, let's see, to color, background color. So it takes a background color. And now the nice thing about Material app here, right, is that it has some, remember I said it had some code already written for it? So we can type color with a capital C, colors, and then dot. And then we can call it, I don't know, light blue. And then boom, it changed the color, right? So the next thing we're going to do is let's try to make the image fit the circle. Okay, so give me 1 second. Okay, sorry. So it takes something called an asset image for the background image, and then you basically have to list the location of where the image is, and then hit play once again, and then boom, it centers the thing, and yeah, so it's looking a little bit nicer. So before we go forward, we kind of want to get rid of this little red flag here that says debug, just because nobody likes it. and it's actually a feature of our Material app, and we can read through it. But let's go back to our Material app, like right there, and we can type banner. It says debug show check mode banner, and we can just hit false, and then we hit play, and then boom, disappears, right? That's fine. So now we have a column with a circle and some text. And now let's say we want to add a few things. One, some styling to this name, right? Like make it add some nice letters and things like that. And then we want to add those social icon things, right? So really we have a few options. Either we could go get an image of Facebook, Twitter, and make our own like icons, or we could use a community built product. I'll just close a bunch of tabs. So one of my favorite websites is pub.dev, and basically what this is, it's community built custom code that you can use on your apps. And then here you can search. We're looking for like some kind of social media icons that we could use that are already built for us, because I don't want to do this by hand kind of thing. And it says social media buttons, and it has 8 likes. We can take a look, see what it is. Doesn't have any pictures, which I think is a bit of a shame. You know, I wish everyone would add pictures to it because it would make it easier. Okay, that's okay. It'll work. I think I've used this before. And then the other thing we want to add is I want to add something called Google Fonts, just because it's really easy to use, and it kind of makes sense for us to use it. And basically what this is a bunch of fonts that we can use on our app without having to manually load fonts, kind of thing. And then let's start with the social media one, and we can go installing, how to install it, and it says you need to add this to your PubScale YAML file. And again, we're going to copy the entire thing, we're going to copy even the blank space, and we're going to hit copy. Then we're going to go to our folder again, and we're going to find the PubSpec YAML, open it, and then we're going to go to here, there, where it says Cupertino icons. We're going to hit enter, we're going to remove all the space, and then we're going to hit paste. And then you see how it's like perfectly aligned with Cupertino. That's a good thing. That's the way it should be. And then just before we go, we're also going to include the Google Fonts one, because I really like it. Again, copy with a space, and then paste. And then here we're going to hit, we're going to close this, 1 second. We're going to hit pubget, and it's basically downloading that code that someone else made. I'm going to hit pub upgrade just in case, because I've noticed it does give me some issues sometimes. Then it says it's done, no errors, nothing, it's perfect. Okay, and then circle avatar, okay, the text, perfect. And then first let's look at the social media one, right? We can go to let's go to the example one. So we can read through the examples, and it says blah blah blah. We can add, right, so it basically says if you want to add it, basically add this. It's called a social media button.github.stack overflow, and everything. Oh, never mind. You know what we could do? We could just copy this, I think. I think all the way there. And then we're going to add it here. Let's see if that works. And then it gives us like a red thing. It says, I've never heard of this, right? So we're going to click here. And here it gives us the option like import library. Now, if it's not giving you the option, then what you need to do really is to close your, you need to go here, close it and open it kind of thing. Let's just hit play and see what happens. Okay, I know what's happening. That's kind of weird though. Actually, let's just close this thing, because again, I think I mentioned it before, but every time you you do anything to your pubspec YAML file, it's just better that you close the entire IDE and then restart the process. It's going to save you a lot of troubleshooting. And actually, let's delete a few of these. I mean, let's just leave. Let's see, GitHub, Stack Overflow, Instagram, and let's just delete everything that's not those three things. Okay, we hit play again, and it's going to rebuild the app for us. Let's see if that works. I'm not entirely sure. So here we wait. It's again taking a bunch of code and making an Android app for us. So it gives a little error here, but it's unrelated. We don't have to worry about it. Yeah. Vertical viewport with unbounded heights. Okay, I know what's going on. It's giving us an issue because we're using a grid view count and I'm just not doing it properly. Let's just use a row. It'll just be much easier. So I changed everything to a row. Now it should work. Yeah, there we go. And again, I should have used a grid because it requires other stuff that I wasn't touching. But now you can see, now we have the row of icons and we have GitHub Stack Overflow. We can get rid of this one as well. Right, so now we have everything that we kind of wanted. We have the picture, the name, and some icons you can actually press and do things with. But you know, if we kind of develop this app, it'll just be really, really bad because one, it's all over the place. We really want to center it and make it look nice. Luckily, we had a column where you can see the column has children, which is the circle avatar, the text, and the row, which also contains our icons, right? So the column has a property called main axis. Let's go main axis size first. So this is the size of the column, and we can type main axis size and then max. So basically it's saying, and again, you can read the documentation on this and what it is. You should always go back and read the documentation on this. And then main axis alignment, and main axis alignment, we're going to make it equals to center. And then it also has another feature called the cross-axis alignment. And then again, you can read on the documentation what it is and what it does. But I'm going to hit center, and then we're going to hit play again and see what it looks like. So everything is kind of center, but this is not center. Our icons, right? It's because the icons are getting their positioning from the row. So for the row, we're going to do a similar thing where it's main axis alignment, center, and also the size. Main axis size, main axis max. And we're going to hit play once again. And then boom, it adds everything, right? Now, there's a few options on what we could do here. For example, you can see everything's kind of together. So we would need some padding or some like empty space between them. So instead of adding, I mean, we could do instead of doing like center, we could do like space around kind of thing, right? And then let's see what that does. So, but that looks kind of bad. So let's go back to center. Now, what we really, really, really want to do is we want to add a little bit of space there and a little bit of space there, right? So between the text, we need some space. So we can click on it and then Alt-Enter, and we can hit padding. Wrap with padding. And padding will essentially add empty space. And And instead of using, so it gives you a bunch of, it says padding, and now the text became a child of the padding, which is fine because we're adding padding to the text. And we're going to delete this. And again, this is because I read the documentation. And we're going to hit symmetric, and then we're going to do vertical, and then we're going to do 20. Let's see what that looks like. So basically I'm saying add padding vertically. And there it looks kind of nice, right? The other thing we're going to do is maybe let's increase the size of the image. And again, we can go back here and maybe add 80. Perfect. And we might also want to increase the size of the icons here. Let's see if that's possible. Let's see how we can do that. There we go. So the social media button, GitHub, has a feature called size. So we can just go here, size. Let's call it 35. And let's add it to all the icons that we have. Gets bigger. Perfect. And now there's the text, right? The text looks terrible, to say the least. But remember how we downloaded a Google Fonts thing? So now we can go to Google Fonts. Just type Google Fonts on Google. And then it'll be fonts.google.com. So close. And we can type Tom Hanks here. And then we can do like categories. So now we're looking for a font that we like. And let's say you really like this one. So it's called Dancing Script. Which is fine. So just remember the name. And then go to Google Fonts, installing, and then example. And then we can read how to use Google Fonts. And it basically says, okay, when you have a text, open a style, and then the Google Fonts dot, then your style name, which is dancing. So let's give it a try. Let's see if it works for us. So where's our text? Where's our text? There. And then it says add a style feature, and then Google Fonts. There we go. And I think dancing, right? I think that was ours. Dancing script. There we go. And let's see what it looks like. Ooh, nice, right? But then inside of here, like if we keep reading the Google Fonts, it says, hey, once you open those brackets, you can add other stuff like a style or the size. We obviously want to make it a little bit bigger. So let's do that. Let's make it, I don't know, size 40. And again, there's some rules you should follow about sizing and everything, but there we go. Tom Hanks, right? And I mean, so basically we just went and developed a contact card kind of thing for Tom Hanks. And then here, for example, I mean, everything on, basically the purpose of this app is to kind of introduce you to the idea of Flutter. It's not necessarily because you want to build a contact card, but it's more of an introduction to the language itself. So for example, the package we downloaded that had the social media button things also has something called on tab. And what that means, it's basically once you tap on it, it's going to do this, right? So let's say if we had some package that could go like www.google.com Tom Hanks. Then when you click on it, it would go there kind of thing. So that's the purpose of the on tab. And again, but the main thing you have to remember is you don't really need to follow 1,000 tutorials to kind of use Flutter, right? There's no need for it. A lot of it, all of it, you can really find on your Google Flutter API tools. Like if you ever run into any issues, or you're not sure how to do an image, you're not sure how to do anything, just come here, and it will show you everything. Everything is here. Everything you need to know is here. So I think that's it for this tutorial. And I think if you really want to learn Flutter and become good at it, I think the next steps are quite clear, right? You could either keep searching for more tutorials on how to do more complicated things, or you could spend a couple weeks basically rebuild this app, but make it a bit more fancy. Try to add your own widgets. Instead of using a column, use something else. Use stack, right? Don't use a column. Use a stack widget, right? You could use one of these. And instead of using what I used, like for example, I went to pop.dev and I did. You can also come here and do like. There's some custom code that you can learn how to use, right? So try to download one of these. Basically, try to add stuff to it through widgets. that you are able to use, and then practice. And then, if you develop like 2 or 3, like let's call it an app that just shows information, then you can move on to the next tutorial kind of thing, right? But there's no value to you just watching tutorials on how to do things. At this point, you should spend some time and play with the column, play with the scaffold, look at the settings for a save area, look at the settings of a material app, look at the different settings of circle avatar, find new ways to add padding, read more about rows, and try to make it so it's like the picture's here. Try to make it so that the name is on top, the picture's in the center, and this is at the bottom. Try to make it so the name is like here. So essentially challenge yourself to use the language in ways that are not necessarily what the tutorial does. And again, doing the tutorial has no value other than introduction to the language. So I hope you liked the video, and I hope it helped somewhat like explain what Flutter is and how to use it. And if you did like the video, please subscribe and like it, tell your friends about it. And again, it's not meant to be a tutorial, it's meant to be a, think about like a class, a lecture that you would have in university kind of thing. Anyways, subscribe to the channel. Thanks a lot.